The debate over extending that controversial NSA surveillance program will drag on at least one more week after the Senate defeated a string of proposals. The Senate doesn't go back into session until next Sunday. That's just hours before key provisions of the Patriot Act expire. Joining us now, former UN Ambassador John Bolton, who is a strong supporter of the NSA program. Ambassador, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Glad to be with you.
As I say, you're a strong supporter. You believe that bulk data collection of our phone records is vital to protecting the country. In fact, you have a foundation that is running an ad here in Washington trying to convince members of Congress to vote for it. Here's a clip.
I strongly support NSA efforts that protect America's interest in the digital world. Without NSA, we're vulnerable and blind.
Ambassador, how worried are you now that Congress won't even take up whether or not to extend this program till next Sunday, just hours before the lights go out?
Well, I think ultimately some aspect of it will be extended. I think there's no question about that. The number of people who actually want to shut the program down entirely is really very small. The issue for me is getting the debate pushed forward 2 or 3 years until we get into a presidency where many Republicans, I think, would have greater faith that a new president's not going to endanger American civil liberties. I think there's a lot of hype and hysteria about this program, but it's compounded by a basic distrust of Barack Obama.
I want to pick up on something that Governor Huckabee said, and that is that the Justice Department's Inspector General this week issued a report that said the FBI can't report to a single terrorist plot that was broken up as a result of this program. Isn't that a fairly strong argument against it?
Well, I think that report covers only a small piece of the total picture. That is to say, what the FBI is looking at. NSA and others, former CIA officials, have said that of many recent terrorist incidents affecting the homeland, that the bulk data collection program has been a factor in every one of them. And let's be clear how intelligence works. It's very rare that one piece of intelligence dictates the ultimate conclusion. This NSA program is part of a lot of efforts, and it is very important.
You talk about the hysteria. What you say is the hysteria against it. You also have said that critics of the program are engaging in McCarthyite tactics, like Joe McCarthy back in the 50s, trying to scare the American public. Now, this week, Senator Rand Paul took to the Senate floor for almost 11 hours to speak out against continuing the NSA phone record program. Here's how he later explained it.
I'm for getting terrorists. I'm for looking at the records of terrorists. I just want to use the Constitution.
Is Senator Paul guilty of McCarthyism?
Well, that statement was not McCarthyism. I agree with it. But I think giving the implication that Americans are having NSA listen to their phone calls, read their emails, the information's presented in such a confusing and confused way that I think there's a lot of demagoguery going on here. And I think that's one reason why the votes in Congress are so up in the air, because even many members don't fully appreciate how this program works, what it does, and what protections are built into it.
While Congress debates how to protect us, the threat from ISIS only grows. After the terror group took the Anbar capital of Ramadi this week, this was the comment from White House spokesman Josh Earnest.
Are we going to light our hair on fire every time that there is a setback in the campaign against ISIL?
And President Obama said this: I don't think we're losing. There's no doubt there was a tactical setback. Ambassador Bolton, what do you think is going on in the White House?
I think they're in denial, but I don't think that's anything new. I think they've been in denial about the war on terror for the last 6+ years. They don't want to admit we're in a war. They'd rather treat it as a law enforcement matter. That's palpably wrong. I think their unwillingness to understand the nature of the ideological threat we face from the likes of ISIS paralyzes them in an ability to deal with it effectively. And we are losing. There is no doubt about it.
So, I mean, if we are losing, and you see what happened to Ramadi and Palmyra and the border crossing, the last border crossing that ISIS didn't control. What is it that they're not seeing? Why, and how do you explain they're not seeing it?
I think they're blinded by their own ideology. I think they see this as something that would inevitably lead to more American involvement, and they don't want to do it. And they just simply will not acknowledge that ISIS is a threat not simply in the region, although it certainly is to the oil-producing monarchies of the Arabian Peninsula, but with thousands of American citizens, citizens of European countries, joining ISIS in Iraq and Syria, that poses a direct terrorist threat in the very near future right here in America.
You have laid out some controversial ideas about what to do. One of the things you say is that the state, and these are your words, the state of Iraq has ceased to exist. You also say that we need a sizable increase in U.S. troops on the ground in Iraq, not a reinvasion, but you make it clear more than just an injection of some special forces. So explain, what is your plan for victory?
I think that Turkey and the Arab states nearby have a huge stake in working with us to destroy ISIS before it really consolidates its control over the territory it holds, rips up the post-World War I map of the Middle East, and creates a new state, which is its objective. Those Arab forces and the Turks can't do it alone. They need American leadership. They need us there with them. It's wrong to say it's their problem, let them handle it. Are we really saying we're going to put American security in the hands of the Saudi Defense Ministry? I don't think so. What I've said is very unpleasant to hear. Politicians shy away from it. I think it's inevitable.
But when you say the state of Iraq has ceased to exist, one, what does that mean? And two, what are the ramifications? Does it mean we're not going to put Humpty Dumpty back together again?
Precisely. Look, the Kurds now are de facto independent. They're not going back into Iraq under any circumstances voluntarily, and I don't know anybody who's going to push them back. The Arabs divided between Sunnis and Shias. I think the Sunni Arabs are never going to agree to be in a state where the Shia outnumber them 3-1. That's what ISIS has been able to take advantage of. I think our objective should be a new Sunni state out of the western part of Iraq, the eastern part of Syria, run by moderates or at least authoritarians who are not radical Islamicists. What's left of the state of Iraq is that right now is simply a satellite of the Ayatollahs in Tehran. It's not anything we should try to aid.
All right, let's talk in the time we have remaining a little bit about 2016. You're the one person on earth who was thinking of running for president and isn't going to run for president on the Republican side. You'd seriously considered a run. You said this week that you can't because you say it's not feasible for someone like you to run. What does that mean?
Well, I think the reality is that unless you're an elected official at the senatorial or gubernatorial level or a former official at that level, it's very hard to overcome the conventional wisdom that you simply can't get attention and win. And I think for a long time I also faced the headwind of trying to make national security the central issue. I think I've actually seen that part of the problem overcome. But I think you've got to be a realist about this. I wasn't in this primarily for myself anyway. I was in it to accomplish the objective of getting foreign and defense policy, the first job of the presidency, to be the center of the debate.
All right. As you say, you would have run, had you run, as a national security hawk. Now that you're out of the race, are there any people that are currently in or look likely to be in who you are comfortable with on those issues, and any that you're very much uncomfortable with on those issues? I'm talking about on the Republican side.
Right. Well, I don't want to be, for this point anyway, the S&P rating service for the other Republican candidates. My aim is to push all of them to talk a lot more about how they feel about national security, because that is the president's top job. It's not enough to read a speech. It's not enough to have glib talking points. I think the candidates have to demonstrate in their guts that they understand that protecting the country is job one. I think most of the candidates are moving in the right direction. I think there's one conspicuously not moving in that direction, and that is Rand Paul.
And your feelings about him on national security?
Well, I don't know where he is on any given day. I think his philosophy is in competition with his ambitions. But I also believe in redemption. I think there might be hope for him yet.
Ambassador Bolton, thank you. Thanks for coming in on this holiday weekend.
Glad to do it.
Good
Thank
to talk
you.
with you, sir.